Public Works and Planning Commission meeting. We have minutes to approve, don't we, Rachel? Yes. Vice Chair Steve Piercy, are you prepared to make comment on the meetings of past?
Chairman Cush, I have reviewed the minutes. There's only one part that needs to be changed. It's under other business. It's under the LOI for Pratt. It says motion failed with Commissioner Blair, Sereno, and Harris voting yes, and Commissioner P. Piercy Dodd and Chairman Harris voting no. That should be Chairman Cush.
Gotcha. All right.
I move for their approval with that change. Y'all didn't think I read them, did you?
Thank you. Thank you. Good for you, Vice Chair. And we have a second from Commissioner Dodd.
All right, thank you.
All those in favor of approval and adjustment of those minutes, say aye.
Aye.
No opposed. Thank you. That motion does carry. All right. We are going to stick with the reports as listed. So solid waste, you are first. And that would be Bishop Wagner.
The newly appointed commissioners to the Public Works Committee. I look forward to working with you in the future. Here is, I have, in your iPods, I've submitted 2 months worth of landfill reports. We had an issue where I missed the August report, didn't get the data in time to add it, and I told you I would include that, so that's in here as well. So we'll kind of go through them in the order that I have them. We'll start with the landfill report for, this is the September landfill report first. I guess we'll do this backwards. We had a total of 259 tons of commercial brush for a price revenue of $7,774 brought to the county. We had county dumping for a revenue of $2,896. For that same September, we then go to the residential recycling and disposal amounts. Let me see, looks like I got disposal first. Total, is this recycling or disposal? Let me make sure I'm reading you the right one here. No, it'll be recycling first. I apologize for that. It'll be this is from August 1st to August 31st. We've recycled a total of 474 tons, 474.67. And for the same month, we disposed of total tons, 3,092.23. For the month of September, we had a total recycling of 398.88 tons and a disposal of 3,344.98 tons. I'm missing one. Looking for the total tonnage for the month of August. Looks like we had a total commercial tonnage of $9,132 that we brought in at the landfill, and free service of $1,103. That's usually the county litter crew. Do I have any questions on that portion?
Anyone, Bishop?
So a brief update of the activities that are going on currently at our location, 6000 Landfill Road. Currently in the process of amending the Class 3 landfill to its appropriate shape following its final construction plans. There's some areas that needed some balancing, and we're continuing to work on that. I've got the equipment from Milton Construction, our contractors that are out there that are moving material as we speak, taking the top cover off the working face and starting to get us in compliance for what effectively will be a minor mod to allow us to be able to collect and manage the fluid that we've been discussing over the course of the past meetings. We're 1 week into the project right now. I encourage you all to reach out to me and come on out and take a look at what's going on out there, kind of see what we're dealing with out there as we go forward with that project. The other projects we have on are the 4 convenience centers, which are in construction. The Leanna Convenience Center is currently the furthest along in construction. They've erected the steel building that will house the fire tanker for the fire rating, for the insurance for the residents there. The concrete has all been poured on the first phase of the project, and they anticipate that we can move forward with shifting within the next 4 weeks from phase 1 into phase 2, which will involve moving the center from where it is currently, the compactors, over to the pads and have the building erected, and will direct traffic in the phase 2 area while they construct the ramps, which will be located. Their footprint is going over the top of where they've laid a bunch of fill material now and into the existing spot. As soon as we go into phase 1 on that center and we start collecting there, it'll immediately drastically increase the size and should help with the flow while they're finishing up the rest of that project. The Rockvale Center is in the form stage on the opposite side of the existing site. They're ready to start pouring concrete, and actually may have poured some concrete today after I've came to the courthouse this afternoon for some of my meetings. So that's moving along well. They're still placing material on the G Street or the Smyrna location now, and that's is moving fairly well according to plan. And from the Landfill Road project, we're dealing with the engineers at ELI trying to figure out the septic site staking and getting their surveyors out there to be able to make sure that we have that appropriately placed so we can continue on with that project. Are there any questions about those?
Do you have, I know we approved for you to buy the mega compactors, the bigger ones. Do you have those yet? Have they come in? Or?
Thank you for asking that. I've been told that our delivery date for the first 4 compactors is October 20th. That's plus or minus a week, depending upon how we choose to, if we choose to go get them or if they deliver them. I would, because of their proximity being in Bedford County, I'd like to just pick them up ourselves and bring them out there, and then they'll send their people. They've been spotted to where their locations are going to be, and they know they've got all the rest of the infrastructure in place. So once we get them in our hands, we'll have them up and operational as soon as possible after that. So I would like to see them before the 1st of November taking garbage.
Do you intend to put them at the new locations that are being
So
reworked?
yes, the new locations compactors, those are included in that second round so that they time a little bit better with the completion of those. So there will be a little overlap with the Leanna Center where we'll have older style compactors in the place, one older style compactor in the place of where a high capacity compactor will go once they come in, and they anticipate that to be around March when they expect those.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Next month, I'd appreciate if you'd bring some photographs and put them up for us. I've seen some of the other department heads are doing that now, and it's real handy. And I think a lot of the new guys would probably benefit. I would benefit from seeing the 3 sites you mentioned: Leanna, Rockville, and Smyrna, and also the landfill road. If you just some photos, I know that would help me. But I don't want to put you on the spot tonight. But I think next month, help get us up to speed on those projects, a little more detail, and also next month, you had a bunch of months to cover, and you're getting your data together. Explain your reports next month when you come back. Be prepared to explain where's your tonnage, which sheet were you looking at. We had 10 sheets on here. I don't know if any else ever caught up with you. So.
Yes. Commissioner Johnson.
You mentioned the weekly road that they're placing materials there, that building materials, so we're getting started, or?
Rock. We're putting in rock to get it to grade. So they're starting their grading and getting staked out for their utilities and stuff. So if everything goes according to the way the other projects have gone, and it's actually, we kind of anticipate they'll move a little quicker once they've done a couple of these, we should be looking at within 3 to 4 weeks to have formed and poured concrete at that site.
Great, thank you.
All right. Continue on, Bishop.
That's all I have for this report.
All
Are
right.
there?
We need to have a motion to approve his reports.
Motion to approve, as presented.
A second from Commissioner Pearson. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that carries. All right, Bishop.
Thank you.
All right. What do you, another business? Okay, sounds good. All right. Mr. Brooks, why don't you come on up and give your highway department report? Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Good evening, everyone. I have a few things for you tonight. So, of those, there are several speed limit changes, speed limit requests that were approved at the road board meeting yesterday morning. I can just go over all those, and you can maybe approve them all at one time, or we can do them one at a time. It's up to.
I request we do all.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so we have Lewisdown subdivision. All of these were on recommendation from the Sheriff's Department. So we always get their input when there's a request for a speed limit change. So Lewisdown subdivision is currently posted at 30. That we're going to lower that to 20. Rockhaven Road did not have a speed limit, and we're going to post that at 20. And then Shadowbrook subdivision, Greenleaf Avenue, was posted at 30 miles an hour, and we're going to move, and that's because of pre-approved subdivision speed limits, and we're going to move that to 25. And I think that is all of the speed limit changes. Yes. Again, those were all approved by the road board yesterday morning and brought here tonight.
So that's a total of 3
Yes.
for speed limit changes?
Yes.
Was the vote unanimous on those, or was there any dissension?
On all 3, yes, it was.
Just out of curiosity, how long are these roads?
How long are they?
For instance, Rockhaven, that's a...
Rockhaven, I don't have my road book. I can give you an approximation just based on, me driving it. I'm going to say Rockhaven Road, not over a half a mile long. Turns off of Gumpucket. Well, you're familiar with that. I'm sure you knew that already, yeah.
Well, I wasn't sure, and the reason I asked is I live right off Falls Hill Pike, which
Right.
is one of the longer
Right,
rural roads in the county,
right.
and it's like 16 miles, somewhere in there. It's maybe more than that.
It's about 16 miles, yes.
And, it's There's a no passing zone from one end to it to another,
Double yellow line, that's correct.
double yellow line, and.
40 miles an hour, is that right?
No, it's not 20 miles an hour.
I say
out there.
40 miles an hour.
Well, it depends on where you're at on that road. But anyway, I wanted to bring that up for discussion because the length of these roads sometimes will make a difference on how I look at them. I don't have a problem with these three, but I wanted to bring up the Halls Hill Pike because a lot of people that live out that way are complaining to me about the speed limits there, especially with the no passing zones.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the three speed limits as presented.
Thank you, Chairman. And we have a second from Anthony. All right, all those in favor? Oh, we need to, no, yeah, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. That motion carries. Greg, continue.
Okay, the next thing I have, I'm not sure what you're seeing there, but the next thing I have is a temporary construction easement for our PW department on Dilton-Mankin, off of Dilton-Mankin Road on Meadowland Drive. This is just to improve some flooding or some minor flooding in some residents' backyards that they've been there for a long time, and we had an opportunity to go in and rework a drainage, a platted drainage easement behind these homes, and we were able to do that. And so this is a temporary construction easement for, actually it's on Meadowland Drive. Some residences on Meadowland Drive.
All right. Any questions to Greg about that easement?
If the other drainage easement is the permanent easement that this accesses, can we do them together? Are they both Beto?
I'm sorry, I don't understand the
Or
question.
both, is your other drainage easement to the same?
No, it's a temporary construction easement also, but they're not tied together.
Okay, disregard, excuse me.
Yeah.
You want to get a motion on this one
I
separately?
don't know if you want to do these temporary construction easements independently or do them together. They're not connected. One of them's on Meadowland and the other one's on Ashley.
Okay. All right.
The one that you just brought up was,
Dilton-Mankin Meadowland.
it's the Public Works drainage, construction easement only temporary.
Right.
Your board, it looks like your board motioned and approved it.
Correct.
And the engineering department supports it, then I would make a motion for its approval.
And we need a second. All right, we have a second by Joshua. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, that carries.
Okay, then we have another temporary construction easement on Ashley Drive to, actually it's really just removing some siltation from another platted drainage easement. A gentleman was concerned. The long story is we were going out to repave Ashley Drive, and as it turns out, when the culvert under Ashley Drive is overwhelmed by heavy rain, long extended periods of rain, then the road becomes the emergency spillway, if you will. So he was concerned that if we put another layer of asphalt on that road, it was going to increase the depth of the water that was on his property. So we are going to go out and make the improvements to the outlet of the culvert. We've already replaced the culvert under the road because it was old and had started to deteriorate. And now we're going to make some improvements to the downstream side of the discharge of that culvert, and just to make sure that we didn't amplify any problems that he would have, we actually went out and lowered that road so that when we repaved, we did not increase the elevation of what is, kind of a spillway. So he's not being negatively impacted. In fact, he'll be positively impacted by the improvements we're making to the downstream ditch. So, questions on that?
And engineering is signed off on that?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Actually, the road board signed off on it, engineering, unless I need, if you're talking about our county engineering department, Mr. Mike Hughes, unless I need his advice, he really doesn't have to sign off on any of these.
Okay.
But I often do ask for his advice. He's very good at what he does, and it's good to have an objective set of eyes looking at these things.
And you have your own civil engineer, though, correct?
Yes, we have a
So
public
just
works
for the other
engineer,
guys,
yes.
y'all have an engineer that's
Yeah, we have a public
reviewing
works
these.
engineer.
And I'm quick to approve some of these. I don't mean, I just know that Greg doesn't take drainage easements lightly. We don't get in them unless we have to. And if he's in it, it's because he's trying to help a constituent with a problem. And sometimes we have to get the small ones and we have to skip some large, complicated ones. So I'm quick to support these kind of motions because it's just good for the landowner.
Right.
And Greg looks into these with a lot of diligence and planning. So I don't want to appear to be rash, but that's why I've been quick on some of these guys.
Chairman P?
Well, I wanted to commend Greg for doing this, and I've seen this, I'm out in the rural areas, you city commissioners, or that are all city, you've got public works that takes care of a lot of these problems, but, it's good that they're looking at these. I mean, I've got subdivisions in my areas that if you go in and put another layer of asphalt on top of it, you're basically damming water up. Mm-hmm. And I really appreciate them looking at this on a case-by-case basis and helping us with those problems. I mean, I can name numerous places right now that I've got that problem in, so we thank you.
Well, appreciate that. And it's significant when you start talking about an area that's flat or that's in a bowl and you lift the elevation of the road by a couple of inches, that could back water up several feet further, not deeper obviously, but further. So it's significant. And these drainage easements, we get a lot of calls. Commissioner P, I don't know that Public Works would exist if it weren't for him. So, but we get a lot of calls about flooding, and as you all know, we have a lot of parcels that exist in a bowl that rely on sinkholes and that type of thing to drain. They don't actually drain to a stream or a river or whatever. So when those bowls start to fill up, we have a lot of calls about flooding, and we take them all very seriously. And whether it's one parcel involved or numerous. And when we can help, we try. We really do try to look at it from every angle. And there's two kinds of water. There's water that's in your yard that, it's a nuisance, but it's not really doing property damage. And then there's water that's actually, getting into your crawl space and your HVAC system, or possibly even your garage or home, So we try to triage them, if you will, but they're all significant when they're your property that's flooding. So we try to help when we can.
Need a motion?
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Chairman. And a second from Joshua James. All right, all those in favor? Any opposed? Thank you, that motion carries. Greg, what else you got?
The next thing we have is
One quick question or one quick comment. These are the type of things that will be on a consent agenda as it relates to the county commission. So it won't be discussed unless someone brings it up. So these are the type of things that we will put on a consent agenda to conserve a little bit of time.
That's correct. Does that make sense?
okay. So the next thing I have is a budget amendment, which I guess we can't put that on the consent agenda, but I have a budget amendment to purchase some new dump trucks and a new fuel truck / lube truck. This will be replacing some older trucks that we have in the fleet, and it was on our it's been on our radar for a while, but because of the fact that it's getting more and more difficult to find this equipment, we felt like we needed to go ahead and do that this year. and I don't anticipate getting delivery on this stuff until well into next year. So we felt like we better go ahead and do it now because a lot of this stuff is at least a year out. So this will be moving money from our fund ending balance, which is our 131,34,750 account, to decrease $1,300,000 and move that into our highway equipment account, which is 131,068,714, an increase of $1,300,000. So this is, again, it's been approved by the road board, and it's here for your recommendation to move it on to budget and then on to the full commission.
All right, very
Mr.
good.
Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve.
We have a second. Any questions or comments before we go to roll call?
I've got a question. One, I always want to double check, have we gotten our money's worth out of these older ones? And I'm quick to assume yes, but I'd like to just double check that.
Did we get our money's worth?
We certainly got our money's worth.
Actually, that's a legitimate question, and I really can say with confidence that we probably got more out of them than most would have. We have our own maintenance shop, we have our own mechanics, so we've extended their life probably beyond what most people would have done. So yes, the answer is yes.
And do you have a more definitive answer on when to expect receipt of the new ones?
I have been told that we could possibly get 2 of the dump trucks as early as July, next year in July, but the other 2 would probably be November, as well as the fuel truck in November. So this stuff's it's not sitting around on a shelf like it used to be, so to speak. It hadn't even come down the line yet, hadn't been built yet. So it takes a while to get it. A lot of these dealerships have allocations now, and they're only going to get so many trucks per year. So they have other customers that they have to try to keep serviced as well.
Greg, should these become available for whatever reason at an earlier date, are we prepared to accept them and
Yes, we are.
cut them a check?
Yes, we are.
Okay. All right. Very good. All right, let's go on to board since there's money being spent. Just roll call. I'm sorry.
Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
Commissioner James,
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips.
Aye.
Chairman Cush.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, the next thing I have is some information about a generator grant that we have been made aware of and we've been pursuing for quite some time. We've had a lot of help from Ms. Phyllis Fultz, whom you all know is our Public Works Legal Secretary, and then Ms. Carrie Clark over at EMA. She helps with all of our grant stuff. But this is an opportunity to get a generator installed at the Highway Department, and it's an effort for kind of a continuity of operations, if you will, in an event of a large-scale disaster. You all know when there is a disaster, a tornado, or that type of thing, even terrorism, a lot of times the Highway Department would be called in to go in and clear the roads so that the emergency responders could respond. And then we also have a pretty nice facility over there, so if another department needed to, they could use us, while their facility was inoperable. So this generator would serve us well. Hopefully it's something we'll never need, but if we do need it, we'll need it bad. So this is an opportunity to get a generator installed with a transfer switch, with a grant and help from the state and the federal government, and it's a 90-10 match. So our responsibility will be 10%. So it's a great opportunity, but it'll take some time to make it happen. As grants, you know, they're never fast. So what we've done is built in a little increase because we feel like it could take a couple of years. So they wanted a resolution, and that's what we're trying to do with this. So I'm going to read this to you. I think you may have it, but the Rutherford County Highway Commission meeting in regular session Monday, October 3rd, 2022, made and approved the following motion. Mr. Keith Bratcher made a motion seconded by Mr. Keith Elrod to approve the resolution to set aside and has agreed to pay 10% of the current estimated cost of the Highway Department generator grant if approved by the state. The monies will be coming from our current annual operating budget, 131 Highway Public Works Fund, 22-23. The current estimated cost for the 10% is $35,700. That amount will be accounted for from the budget line item 131-68,714, highway equipment. This resolution will be forwarded to the state. So this is really just kind of for your information thing. I feel like this would probably be on the consent agenda as well, but I needed to bring it to you because it is a resolution and it will have to be presented to the full commission because it is a grant.
This is some type of a grant that we've already applied for? Or
Yes.
We've already applied for it?
We have applied for it, yes. So this is part of the application process, getting this resolution approved.
So they're asking for us to say that we will provide the money if they approve the grant?
Right.
Okay.
And this is me telling you all that money is in our current highway equipment line item. That's where that money will come from, that 10%.
I really like 90% grants. 100% are better, but I really like 90% grants.
Me and you both.
I move to approve, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. We need a second. We have a second by Joshua James.
One quick comment on this 10%. If you had to go out and lease a generator big enough to run that facility
That's
for a
1
month,
month's rent.
it's going to cost you more than that 10%.
Yeah, that's a month's rent. Yeah.
That's from experience and industries.
Well, this 10% of, it's $356,477. That's for the installation, that's for setting the equipment. That's for the transfer switch. That's for all the necessary wiring and the whole thing. So this thing will be operational for that kind of money.
What's the life expectancy of something like that? Would it last as long as your dump trucks?
Oh, it should last longer, hopefully. Like I said, I hope we just go out there and test it once a month, and that's the only time we ever hear it run. That'd be nice.
We will need to do a roll call on this since there's money, even though it's in the future monies. Do we need to put a limit not to exceed $36,000 mark? Just, okay, all right. Okay, very good. All right, all those in favor? No, I'm sorry, roll call. I just said it and I went against myself, so.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Anthony Johnson?
Aye.
Commissioner James? Yes. Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips? Chairman Cush?
Yes.
Motion passes.
That's all I have for you this
All right.
evening. If anybody has any questions on anything else while I'm here? If not,
Good batting average this time.
that's good. 100%.
Thank you. Thank you, Greg, for all you do. All right, Tanya, are you here? Oh, yes. Yeah, the new director, yeah, that's right. And why don't, since we have some new folks, why don't you introduce yourself?
I'm Mark Russell, Assistant Director of Building Codes, filling in for Ms. Bell while she's out of town this week. I'll be giving you a report. September Schools facility tax total was $444,000, $343.50 for a fiscal year to date of $943,749.50. The development tax that we're still collecting in some cases for September is $33,000 for a fiscal year to date of $80,250. Total building permits issued for the month of September was 282. 37 of those were your single-family dwellings, 21 for additions, 3 for mobile homes, 27 for swimming pools, 3 for temporary parking. I think from last year this time, we're down about 41 total permits from this time last year. And I think that's about it, unless you guys have any questions.
What did you say? I'm sorry, what did you say the year-to-date total was?
Total, we're down about 41 from last month, last year, from September, you know, but in talking to the builders and everything, of course, typically in a normal building cycle, the fall would be a little slow anyway, but the last 2 years have been exceptionally different from that because of the boom, but with the uptick in interest rates and with the addition of a building cost, several builders have expressed that they're just going at a little bit slower pace and they're a little more cautious about their new starts.
So what's the year-to-date permits that we've?
The year-to-date?
Yep.
The year-to-date is 282 so far. Thank you. Okay, that's it. No one has any questions. Thank you very much.
Mark, we need to make a motion to approve Mark's report. All right, thank you, Joshua. Do we need a second?
Second.
Thank you, Chairman. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you. Good job. All right, Doug, Planning and Engineering.
Good evening, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well today. I usually give 2 reports for this committee for the benefit of the new commissioners who are here. The first report is the available lot inventory. This is something we started several years ago. What this does is it tracks the number of recorded lots that are on the ground that are ready for permits pretty much any time. That's the first handout that you'll see on your SharePoint. The total available lots, which is on page 5, there's actually 2 reports here, and I'll go over both of them here in just a moment, but the page 5 of that first report says the total available lots, again, these are permitted lots, or I'm sorry, recorded lots that are ready for permits, is 987. That's up pretty significantly from last month. Primarily the reason being is we had 4 large sections recorded this past month, almost 270, actually a little over 270 lots were actually recorded at the Register of Deeds office. That coupled with what Mark Russell was just talking about as far as the typical seasonal slowdown that we see this time of year on top of the rise in interest rates and different things. So we're not seeing as many permits being issued, so this number was fluctuating in the upper 600, lower 700s over the last several months, but it's because of, again, mostly because of those 4 large sections that were recorded back in September. So the total available lots on the ground right now is 987. The second part of that report's really more informational. These are subdivision plats and sections that have not been recorded yet. Just to kind of give you an idea, they're somewhere in the pipeline as far as they've been preliminarily approved. Maybe there's sections of them that have been approved, but they have not been recorded yet, so there's still a little over 5,500 lots kind of floating around out there that haven't been recorded yet, but are in the current approval process. So that's the overall kind of the summary of that report. So before I go on to my rezoning report, I'll just ask if there's any questions on that.
Do you have any update on the, I can't remember the name of it, the 55 and older?
Oh, Del Webb Community, Southern Harmony. They are, they've received preliminary plan approval. They've received construction drawing plan approval for the first couple, like Section 1, Phase 1, and I believe Section 1, Phase 2. They're actively out there moving dirt on Section 1, Phase 1. They haven't gotten anywhere close to, final plat approvals or anything at this point, but they are moving dirt out there.
Any idea how long before the first?
I would
person
say
moves
probably
in?
sometime next year. There's a lot of work that they need to do. They've also run into some issues as far as getting their approval for septic and step and whatnot, so they're still a little ways out. There's no other questions. I'll go ahead and move into my rezoning report. The second part, again, of the presentation I usually make just goes over the zoning requests that the Planning Commission considered at the previous meeting. We've only had, for this coming Board of Commissioners meeting, we only have one rezoning request for your consideration. This is for property located along Miller Road. This is over off of the exit 89 off I-24, the Epps Mill Road area. The applicant would like to zone this subject property. It's currently zoned residential medium density. He'd like to zone it to what's called Employment and Activity Center, EAC. This is a mixed-use zone that was identified as such in our current comprehensive plan. Our long-range plan recommended the area around the exit 89 interchange as an area for employment growth, mixed-use development. So that's what the EAC stands for. So what he'd like to do is zone the subject property to build an office and storage area. There's the same applicant actually had one approved at the other side of the interstate along Miller Lane. This is Miller Road that we're talking about. But I did attach a site plan to kind of give an example of what it is that they're proposing to do at this particular site. There's not a committed end user at this point, but they do anticipate someone in the equipment business, truck service, building supply contractor that needs outdoor storage and work bays. I also have included a concept plan with your agenda packet, which is on your iPads. This is not a plan development application, so they're not locked into this design, but it does give you an idea of kind of the direction that they would like to go with this. Access and parking, of course, would have to connect to Miller Road. We did express some concerns about larger vehicles, tractor trailers, those kind of things turning into and coming from the property on Miller Road. We do expect that some sort of a traffic study or something be submitted whenever we do see an end user or developer submit a site plan for this. So the applicant has been made aware of that, and with all development, an engineered site plan would have to be submitted to our office and then eventually to the Planning Commission for approval. These types of properties also have to require buffering along residentially zoned properties, which really on this particular site is only on the one side, which would be on the south. The northern property line actually borders some similarly zoned property, and our performance standards for noise, odors, and things like that would also apply. The Planning Commission, as I stated a little earlier, did ask the applicant about any potential clients, to which there are currently none for this particular property. There were some questions about whether a site plan would be required, which it will be, and if staff could require a traffic study if it wasn't made a condition of approval, which it can. After those discussions, the Planning Commission did recommend approval by a unanimous vote. So at this time, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Doug?
You said the neighbors already zoned similarly?
To the north, yes. And actually, it's only a matter of time before the remaining property south of this is zoned. There's a piece of property actually on the corner of Epps Mill and Sledge that is zoned similarly, but there's a gap in between where this property is and where that is. But I've already had some discussions with the owner of that property. He's probably going to be coming in the near future for something similar.
And what about the roadway? Can it accept the extra traffic flow?
Well, that's kind of what I was getting at. Without an end user, a known end user, it's difficult to say. The road in and of itself was recently approved as part of the improvements that were made with the Plainview Elementary School. Mr. Greg Brooks and his crew did a lot of improvements in that area. So the road itself is in pretty good condition, but depending on the end user, they may have to put turn lanes in or something like that. We'll just have to wait to see what a site plan would bring to that.
Well, what I'm getting at is I'm not familiar with that road personally, so I'm not sure does it have shoulders? Does it wide enough? Or
Yeah, like I said, that was one of the improvements, the road improvements that was done through the Plainview Elementary. So I think the road's in pretty good condition, yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right, we would need a motion for approval of Doug's reports for planning and engineering.
Motion to approve.
And we have a second from Anthony. All those in favor? Any opposed? Doug, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that brings us to other business. And let's clear up some financials first. This should have been done under the solid waste report. There is a budget amendment request that I will let, you're confident enough to speak about that, Michael? Good.
So there's a budget amendment request. The previous commission approved the services of an environmental attorney outside of our current council. We have received some of those bills in. However, we do not have a legal services line item in our Fund 116 to cover these legal expenses. So this budget amendment is a budget transfer that moves money within the solid waste budget to cover these legal expenses. Any questions on that? Is this on y'all's iPad?
I don't think it was. I didn't see it on mine.
So this budget amendment takes $40,000 out of the contracts with private agencies line item and moves it to a legal services line item. So we're just transferring money within two line items to properly classify these expenditures.
Chairman Cush, can you tell us what it's for? I know it's legal expenses, but do you know for what?
So the previous commission hired, and I would have to ask the attorney to come and talk about these. The previous commission voted to hire an environmental attorney. That attorney is Baker Donaldson. And so they have worked with our in-house attorney on legal matters regarding the landfill or things like that.
I would really love for him to come and explain that to us. If we're going to spend $40,000, I'd like to know what it was for.
The first bill was not 40. That is just to cover any anticipated bills that I'm not aware of. The first bill was around $8,000, and the next bill was around $1,300. This is just to make sure I don't have to come back every time, so we can, if there's any additional ones that I'm not aware of.
Basically, we spent about $9,500.
Correct.
I'm curious. I don't know about the rest of you.
Do you remember where we allotted the money?
Most definitely.
Yeah, for the environmental engineer.
But I'd still like to know, was it for coat and crackers or
Yeah.
something we really needed to know, or, you know?
Right.
I do know that they've worked closely with Nick, so I feel confident he would have brought something to y'all, so that would definitely be a question for the county attorney. But as far as the bills, I have gotten those. The county attorney has signed off on those bills.
Some expenses.
But that was definitely
We
approved.
got to see them. Mr. Chairman, may I join you? We need to see those.
Yeah.
Or I need to know that you or Mayor Carr has checked off on them. But frankly, I'd like to see them. This has been such a sensitive issue, and we had a real laborious choice and conversation to hire another outside counsel. So I don't know where the confidentiality or legal, if there's any, we need to go into private session if we have to. But
that may be one of those for an executive session for Nick, for the county attorney.
Okay, well, I would ask that we have an executive session if we don't have to have executive session, somebody confirm that they've seen and checked the bills.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah. I recognize the mayor.
Thank you. I'm familiar with this allocation of funds and the details, and I think at the appropriate time, if you want explanation, we most certainly can go into executive session if you want a detailed explanation. Obviously, we can't do that now, but that we can make arrangements to do that most certainly.
All right. You have more to add? Okay.
Well, I was just going to say, if we need the full commission's voted to spend the money, knowing what the money is for. Just like everybody else here, yes, I'd like to see that. Now, it may be that we can discuss that in public, it may not be. Mayor, you may know, but what I would ask, if this does come to budget, which it should, I would recommend we go ahead and forward it to budget with the stipulation, and we get an explanation at budget for what this is paying for.
That sounds reasonable.
I do want to add,
In
the
the form
first
of-
bill was paid. That was prior to me arriving here because we did, like I said, the commission did vote for that, so we had to pay that service. So right now, when y'all approved that, there was no budget amendment that followed with that service. So this would just cover those existing bills that have already been. We are holding one since I've been here. And I just want to re-clarify that we have not gotten a bill for $40,000. We've about $9,500. I just did not want to keep coming, back for if we got another bill for $1,100 or $1,200. This was just an estimate to try to cover us. I can reduce that to the exact amount if y'all would like, but we would have to hold the bills for an entire month. And I don't want to get in a situation where we're holding a late bill or anything like that. But it is going to budget if it is approved tonight. That'd be Thursday night.
Well, I'll let my motion stand then that it comes to budget with an explanation.
All right. All right, which second one by Commissioner James. And Chairman P., I appreciate your wisdom. That is a brilliant idea. It will go to budget for approval or review. We can also get it on an executive session on this. Is it this Thursday?
Yes, sir.
This Thursday's full commission meeting for explanation to the body. So
This Thursday's meeting for budget.
for budget, next Thursday for full commission, right?
One thing I'll point out about the executive session, we'd be paying this guy his hourly fee to do that. Now, if Nick can do it, where he's budgeting it already, I'd prefer Nick to do it without having to drag these guys in
Right.
and pay them their hourly fee.
Right.
That's me personally speaking, but if y'all see the need for an executive session and pull those guys in, so be it.
I think Nick, the mayor's had eyes on the details. I think Nick, and Mike, I don't want to put words in your mouth. I think Nick would be sufficient to explain what this
Yes,
is.
and when it comes to stuff like this, we do not pay anything out of my office until our county attorney signs off on it, because he's our county attorney. He has signed off in writing on these bills, saying that these services were provided, but I'm not privy to exactly, what those services were, so I apologize for not being able to speak to that, but he did sign off on both of these bills that we've received.
Thank you. We need to vote, yeah, do we need to, he made a motion, right, to send it to, and James seconded. So all those in favor of that motion signify aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you. Robert, thank you for that. Roll call since it's money. Thank you. Thank you, Rachel.
Commissioner Anthony Johnson,
Aye.
Commissioner James,
Aye.
Commissioner Dodd,
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
Commissioner P.,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips,
Aye.
Chairman Cush.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Chairman, I have
yes.
one more comment on it. I'm good with it, the way it's went. And I wasn't questioning their honesty, but we hired this gentleman to help on environmental stuff with the landfill. And it just strikes my interest to want to know for what, since the landfill is a huge issue. That's the reason I was questioning it. The pool, the 40,000 your pool, I'm good with that, but I would like to know how it's spent. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. All right, that leads us to other business, and we do have some items to discuss. And I would like to take a second to bring our new Public Works and Engineering Committee members up to speed just a little bit on the solid waste issue, as that's what most of our other business pertains to. This group is here to make important decisions about where we lead the 300,000 plus residents of our county forward. The decisions we make really are the foundation of what we have to do for the next generations ahead. What we do for the present is going to represent years and years and years of what is going to be the result and the activity of the next generations to come. There are many ways to move forward, as we have researched over the last few years. There's only one way to stand still, and we are not going to stand still. There have been many different proposals and ideas and dreams brought before this body over the last few years, technology-wise, solution-wise. Many have been very interesting. Few have shown a real promise to the size of trash that we generate in a yearly basis. Some are ideal for what I would say would be a large regional solution, where you have multiple counties, Davidson, Williamson, Rutherford, Wilson, others, go together and participate in a large regional solution. But some of the big players that came to talk to us, we would turn out to be the guinea pig on a lot of those technologies. So there's still a lot of research to be done. However, there is one thing that many of us had entertained and were desirous of for multiple years now. And it was really, to me, a foundation that needed to happen a long time ago to help us bridge and build off of as we, whatever any technologies we incorporated or partnered with or P3'd with, this would be a stepping stone to work off of. And that is a transfer station. In a perfect world, a transfer station on the north end and on the south end would be ideal. The city of Murfreesboro had gone so far as some preliminary designs and siting of a southern facility. They are still in contemplation as to whether they are going to go forward with that, but they saw the need as well. Bishop saw the need for many reasons. One was, in particular, was to save time as we spent hours and hours waiting in line and on the interstates to get to Middle Point to unload and get back for a reroute or return. There are a lot of things we can do with a transfer station. That can be the start of our recycle program. We can add lines for recycling. We can then make money off of that. We could bundle trash and send it somewhere else for the time being until a technology or technologies show up that can handle the amount of waste that this county produces. Because I think we're all in agreement that going forward, we are just concerned about Rutherford County trash and all the trash that is generated within the county, and I'm including the cities. What I'm saying in a nutshell is no more out-of-county trash. I think we're done with that for a while. So our sights are set on let's take care of ourselves for a while and not be the dumping ground for what seems to be half the state of Tennessee. With that being said, we have had some support from some of our old leaders and our current experts in the field of solid waste to back us up on the idea of transfer stations. We have letters from Becky Caldwell of Caldwell Environmental Solutions in support for reasons which, I don't know if, I think you all have a copy of Becky's letter with some concerns about why this needs to be talked about sooner rather than later. We have former Solid Waste Director Mac Nolan in the audience who has also produced a letter that is also on your desk with his reasonings for why we need to be looking at a solid waste transfer station, and again, the sooner rather than later. So, Mayor, if you'd like to make comments or bring any, sure.
If you
All
don't mind. So when I first became mayor, obviously this is probably the most urgent need that the county is facing. And I've talked to each one of you about this in the last couple of weeks. But I want to go back just a week prior, if I may, just take a second. In my effort to consume as much information drinking from the fire hose as possible, I have endeavored to visit every single one of the directors that this county has. And let me just say, this county is blessed with some absolutely splendid leadership. And it's been if I've had a single privilege in the first 30 days, it's getting to know these people who genuinely love this county and do a splendid job. One of those people is Bishop Wagner, our solid waste director. So the first week I was in office, I called Bishop and I said, hey, I want to set up an appointment. And I said, I want to come to you. I said, don't come to my office. I want to come to you. So he took me, I went out there to his new office out there at the old county landfill. And he's given me the 25-cent tour. And he said, you want to go on top of the Cat 3, the C&D landfill? And I said, sure. So we jump into his 1-ton 4-wheel drive Ram truck. And we take the bumpy ride up to the top of the Cat 3 landfill. And I would strongly recommend, if you haven't been out there to visit, I know Commissioner Johnson's been out there and others have been out there, but if you haven't been out there lately, I encourage you to go. So we went to the top of the Cat 3 landfill and we had a splendid view of what's called the valley between Rutherford County landfill, the C&D facility, and Republic Services at Middle Point. And I got to see firsthand, you know, what they're doing out there and the disposal of solid waste from around the mid-state. And I looked at Bishop and I said, Bishop, I said, so how much longer do you think this particular facility has before they're full under their existing permit without expansion? He said, Mayor, 2 to 3 years. I said, excuse me? He said, I believe that they have 2 to 3 years based on what we're looking at right now. That's my best estimate. And as many of you know, I've got a bit of an engineering background, not that I'm an engineer, but I've owned engineering companies, and so I view with a little bit of skepticism anytime I get a first opinion. And so with great deference to Bishop, and I'm going to get him to come up if that's okay, Mr. Chairman, and also I'll get Mac Nolan to come up and they can explain in greater detail. So I reached out to Becky Caldwell. Everybody knows Ms. Caldwell of Caldwell Solutions. She's been a consultant for Rutherford County. She's been a consultant for Murfreesboro City. She's been a consultant for the GNRC for over 20 years. Williamson County, Franklin. Ms. Caldwell is a person of a well-established and well-earned reputation in the solid waste industry. I called Becky and asked her I said, Becky, I said, I just had an interesting conversation with my solid waste director. I said, I'm not going to tell you the details, but based on the information you have today, this was earlier last week, what do you believe the life expectancy of the landfill is? And you have that summary in front of you, 26 months. So I'm still not quite there in the believing stage, gentlemen. I called Mac Nolan. Mac Nolan, from a few years ago, has been instrumental in my education about Middle Point, our old landfill, solid waste, transportation of solid waste. Mac has just been an incredible resource for me. And Mac's comment to me was 24 months. The point being this, we have a decision to make. Because whatever solution or solutions we permanently decide on to move this county forward in dealing with our solid waste, whether it's recycling, and it should be, whether it's composting, and it should be, whether it's converting to energy at some point in time, it should be, whether it's a MRF in whatever capacity that looks like, it should be. It should be a basket of solutions for us to deal responsibly and environmentally with the solid waste this county produces. This county has 362,000 people, and we produce 370,000 tons of solid waste every single year. 100,000 tons of that is we are statutorily required, that is by Tennessee law, to deal with. That is our statutory obligation, is approximately 100,000 tons. If Mr. Bishop is correct, if Ms. Caldwell is correct, and if Mr. Nolan is correct, we have 2 years to come up with a solution. And all those solutions, though, none of them produce 100% diversion. The technology isn't there yet. So whether the diversion is 10% or 90% or more probably somewhere closer to the middle, more like 40 to 50, then or 60, what we're talking about is a transfer station. And because we're still going to have to deal with that. And so I asked, with permission from the chairman, I've given you copies of these letters, but I want, if it's not out of order, Mr. Chairman, I would like for Mr. Bishop and Mr. Nolan to come up, and I would like for this committee to ask them the questions they need, because we have got to move forward with a pending crisis. In 2 years, we potentially will not be able to say we didn't have an opportunity to resolve what is going to be a crisis if we don't move. And without objection, Mr. Chairman.
Please.
Yes, I think we do.
Yeah, you want to,
I had a comment before, if you don't mind,
Sure.
before our people or we suspend the rules here. You were trying to give our new commissioners some background, but I think you left something off.
I left a lot of things off. Yeah.
You left a lot of things off. One of the things that you left off is that we are part of a regional solid waste group, which involves Warren, Coffee, and Cannon. And my question to you is, are you saying that you don't want these people to be involved in being able to dump trash in our county anymore? That's my question to you. From your comment you made, basically you were saying nobody else but us. But to me, us is this region. I just wanted to point that out. That needs some explanation. The other thing I wanted to point out too is the state has given us a large grant, and this group that our regional board, that's probably not the right name for it, is looking at that grant, how they can help us. They can fund a transfer station, for instance. But anyway, there's a lot more to this story than just, hey, we don't want anybody else's trash anymore.
Yeah. Let me clarify or comment on your question before we do we get Bishop up. Two things. Let me go back in history just a minute. We also contemplated, this body, this committee, contemplated the thought of breaking away from that regional board and being an independent, Rutherford County independent, standalone body. Becky Caldwell gave us a list of things that we would have to do. She said it would take about a year, and it would have to take some legislation being passed in Nashville to get that done. We have not proceeded to do that yet. We would also have to get permission from those 3 counties that you just mentioned for us to get out of that board situation. So if that's an avenue we want to take, it's there. We have not pursued that. Whether we want to take their trash or not, I believe only one of those counties' trash is going to Middle Point at this time anyway. We're happy to talk to those folks, but I guess, Chairman, and I did not make it clear, this was a very broad brush explanation, but what we don't want to do is doing anything that mirrors what we're doing now. I say we, what Republic is doing, and that's taking out-of-county trash from multiple counties. That ship has sailed for, in my opinion, for us. That's not what our constituents want. But to work with a partner that's part of that regional group, that's certainly open for discussion. So would you like to make a motion to suspend the rules?
I make the motion to suspend the rules to let Mr. Nolan and Mr. Wagner approach for comments.
Thank you. Second. Have a second. All right. All right. Together's fine. You can play off each other. Either one works. For those who don't know Mac Nolan was our former solid waste director for many years in Rutherford County. And I'll let you go further if you'd like. Okay. All right, Max, so what is your opinion, on transfer station? The mayor has already talked about the Republic longevity. And, you know, truthfully, it doesn't matter to me whether it's 2 years or 5 years. We know something is going to happen. We have to be prepared. We don't have the basket of players in place yet because, frankly, none of them have just impressed us enough to invest or showed us a solution that gets us really a great diversion rate. So we're still looking. And to me, a transfer station is that next step to buy us some time to be able to recycle if we choose, and then take our trash out of county via a transfer station until we find that basket full of tools. So enough from me. I'll let you two describe your thoughts.
This meeting last year was my last meeting with this group. So I've been gone for a year, and I've learned quite a bit. And to add on to what you're talking about, where I am now, we run a transfer station. We use it 7 days a week. And we use about 7,800 tons a month through that facility. That's not all that we haul, but our tire issue is much less. Our durability of our trucks, you could have a little lighter weight truck and still hold the capacity that we have and not spend as much money on your trucking. A lot of that cost that you don't think about is a lot less with a transfer station because you're dumping on concrete. You're not going through the rough terrain of a landfill. We have a landfill too, and it is rough. You know, so if you're going to do both, you still need the rough trucks to do that. But once you get if you get the transfer station in place and it is your facility, then when you run on Sunday, you've got a place to dump. So your hill yard can go away. There's a lot of different advantages to that. Now, you mentioned the possibility of a north and south transfer station. The thought was at the time, we didn't check with Republic to make sure this was okay, but if those transfer stations only accepted trash from the two governments in the county that collect trash, then that transfer trailer should be able to dump at the landfill still at no charge. So that was kind of the thought process of that.
Thank you, Mr. Nolan. So I agree with him as well on wear and tear and durability on the vehicles and the transfer station and the action and activity of that. The dates, you know, that are set, of course, are speculative. I don't run the Middle Point landfill. I don't do that engineering. Haven't seen those engineering reports of those prospectus. I'm looking at the material that gets placed. I'm thinking about the increase in population that we have experienced and explosive growth in this area, and having knowledge of the state's calculation from when I was there. I know that that's not a factor that's included in their calculation. They look at from a volume perspective only. You know, whether it is 24 months, 36 months, 4 years, and 3 months, we are going to have to manage this garbage. The county, this body, and previous committees and the full commission have stated that they were not in favor of an expansion for any landfill in the state, or in the county, excuse me, or in the region. So then we're looking at a day when the landfill that's been serving us for 30 years will no longer be able to accept our garbage. We'll have, with some of the things we've discussed, you know, through the RFP process, some of the technologies that were mentioned before that were brought before us, everyone would take a chunk of the material that came in. Some would divert it for beneficial use. Some of it would, would generate maybe waste to energy. There were all kinds of different ideas, but there was no single idea that handled the big issue, which was we're going to generate garbage at a rate currently of 100,000 tons residentially per year, and we're going to have to manage it in some way. And if we can't drive up to the top of a landfill located in the county, then we're going to have to tip it, and we're going to have to load it, and we're going to have to haul it somewhere where we can. My intention now, as always, since my first day in office, is to maximize our ability to divert material, so we're landfilling a minimum of the material. So I'm going to continue to seek out technologies should we progress in this transfer station development, technologies, innovations, companies that are interested in taking our raw materials and commodities to market so we can get the recycling that we need. And it's the best thing to do, but it's also simple economics. The more money that we're not spending to tip and we're putting back into the market, the less an impact it is on our citizens to pay for these services. And let's keep that in mind as well. I mean, we currently are in an agreement with Republic Services, a host fee agreement where we receive dollars for material that's tipped at their landfill. That relationship, when the landfill ends, will end as well. So those funds and the way that we generate revenue for managing this waste in the county is also going to have to be in review. It is my belief, a strong belief, that the county does need a transfer station to prepare us for the future of managing waste. I think that the idea of having a north and south transfer station would be excellent. I currently don't believe that the county alone should bear that burden. I would love to see an interlocal agreement that involves the city and maybe some of the other municipalities that are partnering together and managing this problem together, because the 300,000 plus citizens of this county, we're not going to stop generating waste, and we're going to have to continue to manage it, for as long as Rutherford County is Rutherford County. Thank you.
Thank you, Bishop. Anything else to add, Mac?
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Just questions. Excuse me, I'm new to this committee, and I'm curious, do we have any infrastructure in place now for the closure of the landfill?
So, to answer your question, we do not have a transfer station. We do have a landfill, the landfill with the scale house and the scale and the ability to weigh and measure. There are some options if we needed to manage these things in an emergency manner. We do not want to do that. We want to try to have something in place to where we can do this without having to go to that, because it'll be a disaster.
Mayor?
I'm
sorry.
If I could add, the answer is yes, we do have some infrastructure in place. The current convenience center model, along with the private haulers currently picking up in the county, as well as the city keeping up, that distribution model, lack of a better term, bringing trash to the landfill, the only thing that changes in that model is the destination point of those retail haulers. Okay, so the convenience center would still exist. Instead of the convenience center trucks going potentially to Middle Point, they now go to the transfer station. Instead of Murfreesboro trucks going to Middle Point, they would now potentially go to the transfer station. So the current, yes, we do have infrastructure in place, and we're not talking about changing that model. We're just talking about leveraging that existing model toward potentially a transfer station to avert a potential crisis.
Thank you, Mayor. He heard that question in a better way than I did.
But that's Joshua, that's not a long-term solution.
No.
No, I wouldn't think that. I was just
stopgap.
wanting to make sure, it felt like it was going to, this suggestion is going to be a very low impact to the everyday citizen out there, and that just felt, I just wanted to confirm that feeling, so.
Yeah, so forgive me, so I can go over this, and I hope to extend that invitation that the mayor brought out. I know we've discussed this before the meeting, have you come out and kind of show you a little bit about how that works. And our collection method and the model that we use here in the county and county will remain the same, I mean, with the upgrades that we're working on now to handle the capacities that we have. What my comment was previous was about once we've collected it already, how do we get it to its final destination? And that's what we'd be talking about here. I mean, today I was hauling all day to the landfill. We haul to the landfill every day. We've had a partnership with Middle Point for over 30 years, and this recommendation is not a slight to them or the service that they've done for us. This is about the future of managing this waste here and what we would need. I never want to get in a situation where we're doing things in emergency style. I don't think it's good for any party involved, and it's not good for Rutherford County citizens if we're doing that. I would like for us to be more thoughtful and do this ahead of time, try to make sure that we're also thoughtful about some of the other issues that affect us from a construction standpoint if we're going to go into a capital construction project like this. With some of the supply chain issues that we've seen, with some of the just the ability to get materials and bids in on time for these large construction projects. These are also factors that we need to put into play so that we can be ready to have this constructed in time, so when needed, it's there and available for us and the citizens to use.
Anthony?
In reference to the infrastructure, I think I agree some of the infrastructure is there, but the main part would be what we don't have, and that is a transfer station. Without the transfer station, the rest of, I mean, if the landfill's closed, then that infrastructure that's in place right now is not going to do us any good. We've got to have the transfer station. Can't drag our feet for sure, because let's say the landfill's closing in 2 years. It's going to take us 2 years to get the thing built.
Right.
To get it through the process and get it built.
That's absolutely correct. That's correct.
My current equipment, the roll-off trucks, the front-load trucks that we have, they can't haul at any distance really further than and be able to accommodate the volume of material that we handle on a daily basis. It would, if my turns go to 2 hours with any day 7, 8 trucks that I have running, with 14 convenience centers, we're getting less than a box a center every day. So it just wouldn't work for us.
If we were to look at building the transfer station, I don't want to talk out of school, but if we looked at our landfill site, if we were to build out there, if we were to decide to build out there, is there property we can build on? Or because I'm almost positive we can't build on top, because as you showed me around the there was a name for it, the pipes that we had with the whirlybirds on them. There was a junction, and you could obviously see that the landfill's already dropped, probably 18 inches at least around those, at least the spot that we were looking at. So that pretty much tells me we can't build on that, but we have other property out there.
We do have other property that the soil was taken from to be placed on the landfill when the landfill went into its closure activities and its operational activities. It will require some engineering, and we would need to get some folks out there with bigger brains than me to figure out what that looks like and where we could place that for it to work. There are also some other large requirements for an infrastructure of that magnitude to be out there. I think that it would be a good place for us to start, and I would recommend that we look at getting somebody to come out there and evaluate the site and see if it's feasible, and take a look at some preliminary ideas of what some plans would look like, because right now numbers that we would shoot toward cost of that would just be speculative.
Oh, my light came back on. The whirlybirds are passive whales.
Yeah, passive wells.
I'm getting older.
Hey, you were paying attention.
Yeah, please, Mac.
When you leave home and you come back home, you see a little difference. but you see a lot of similarities. Rutherford County today is roughly 350,000. Williamson County is 250. Rutherford County has 14 convenience centers. Williamson County has 10 plus one recycle-only center. Rutherford County has experienced free disposal for trash for 30 years. Williamson County has had their own transfer station, their own landfill, and they've operated those. The budget at Williamson County Solid Waste for next year is roughly $9 million. A little less than that here because of free disposal. In Williamson County, you have two cities that represent roughly half the population that pick up trash. Rutherford County, you have one, same situation. The thing that tickled me the best when budgets were passed in Williamson and Rutherford counties for this year is the first time ever either county solid waste budget was more than 1% of the total budget.
Right. Yeah. Bishop, how would we pay for a transfer station?
You said you weren't going to ask me any tough questions tonight.
You can defer to Mike if you want.
There are multiple models for generating revenue with the transfer station. I think that we probably would need to look at the cost of developing the transfer station first, and then let's look at what kind of services we're gonna deal with, and we could have this conversation maybe a little bit further down the road. There are some mechanisms that could involve anything from fee for service. They could be accepting commercial waste and charging fee for that. They're all going to be connected to the size of the transfer station that is decided to build. You know what the current we currently are engaged in a contract that we want to make sure that we're not endangering or infringing upon as well, and that we do this in a thoughtful manner. And then there are other mechanisms for generating revenue as well that come from y'all's side of the table. So those discussions absolutely would be something that we would need to deal with, and we'll have to deal with them in one way or another because the free tipping deal is not going to last forever.
Mayor, you want to comment?
Yeah, so obviously, when Bishop and I had these conversations, the conversation after a few minutes goes to, well, what's this going to cost, right? Inevitably, that's where you end up. And so one of the things that we can do, as Bishop was talking about in the way of generating revenue, we have a again, like I said, statutory obligation for about 100,000 tons. There's nothing we can do about that. That's our obligation as a county. However, that leaves 270,000 tons industrial and commercial and private pickup that is taken currently to Middle Point with a tipping fee. And so if we wanted to, in our model for determining an ROI, we could make some of that or maybe all of it available, depending on the will of the commission, available in the form of alleviating some of the cost associated with A, running the transfer station, and B, building the transfer station, engineering and design. And so with that in mind, we have some numbers that Commissioner Piercy has brought before the commission before that we have used roughly in determining a general ROI and spec sheet for what this would look like. The one thing that we didn't have was what would the cost of a transfer station be? And so, but what we did have is we had Murfreesboro, the city of Murfreesboro, in the last year and a half, is that correct? In the last year and a half, looked at putting a transfer station down on Butler Drive, and the cost estimate of that particular transfer station was about $18 million. That's my understanding with all the bells and whistles, okay? And so using those kinds of very rough numbers, I went, and Michael might want to chime in at this point, which can be more inappropriate, but I went to Michael and I said, Michael, how then would, if we got in an emergency situation, which I tend to think we're moving toward, gentlemen, we're within 2 years, And according to Mr. Nolan and Mr. Bishop, it would take that long to engineer and construct a transfer station. But if we were to fund this, how would we go on about doing it? And at that point, Michael had a number of different ideas and different approaches about how we could do that. And if it's not out of order, I'll let Michael explain some of that in our conversation.
So a couple options this commission would have. If y'all remember, and then for the new commissioners, at the end of last year, the commission voted to set aside $5 million kind of as an emergency contingency to deal with the landfill and some things that if you had to immediately start hauling trash or if you had to do a temporary emergency transfer station. So that $5 million is available to the commission today, or if the commission wished. So that is the quick answer to get some planning costs if that's what y'all needed access to. The second quickest access in an emergency basis would be to postpone a capital project and push it further down the road. So you could have access to a potential maybe $7 million, which was moved for the Dell Webb building, which has not been started. If you wanted to postpone that for immediate access to another $7 million. And then the other option would be, in the short term, would be the schools have talked about potentially requesting to borrow money in the springtime. You could piggyback off that borrowing for something like this. We could use some money, some cash on hand to fund an initial startup phase of this and repay ourselves back out of a future bond issue. Those are about the two or three options we would have if you ask me today, without doing any type of revenue calculations, which would have to come in the future.
All right, so Michael, that being said, if we have the $5 million set aside, Public Works does, kind of for an emergency situation that we passed last fiscal year, could we tap into that for design fees?
Yes, you could.
All right, so if we wanted tonight to go forward.
That is correct.
We have the money.
That is correct.
Okay, all right, thank you.
That money is sitting aside in the general fund, so if this committee or the commission chose to do that, that would just need to amend that out of the general fund into the capital projects or into the solid waste fund.
Okay. Bill, I'm gonna ask you a question, since your daytime job is kind of aligned with this. If you were, round numbers, if you're gonna build a $20 million building, would you set aside 10% for design fees, 6%, 7%?
10 on the high, 10 would be a good
10 would
cushion.
cover you?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Good to know, thank you. All right, so we have ways to fund it. We have a need. We have folks that live in the county and have knowledge, say it's a good thing. Should have done it a few years ago. I guess I'm looking for some guidance of what this board would like to, or committee would like to do in terms of, are you ready to put 10% of 20 million, it's $200,000, isn't it? Ready to set aside $200,000 for, not to exceed $200,000 for a design fee and get that ball rolling? And then there's a handful of expertise, civil and environmental engineers that actually know how to design transfer stations, so that group is easy to reach out to and talk to. Of course, the city could help us. They've already been down the road a little bit. We just have to develop a scope on what we need and determine how many tons we would actually want to handle. So there's things that we'd have to get together in place and sit down with a design engineer to go with. Chairman.
I had some comments I wanted to make while we were having our discussion before, so I'll go back to that. Before I start in on that, though, I don't think that the transfer station is a bad idea. I think it's definitely something I'd like to look at, and I'd like to see some hard costs on it. You know, I'm sure there's some been built somewhere in either our state or a neighboring state, we ought to be able to get some ideas on what it would cost us. So the main thing that's been said here tonight that's convinced me that we could use one is the fact that we can't keep up with the trash that's coming out of our convenience centers and getting it put into the current landfill that's right next door to us. And if it in fact closes in 2 years, then we definitely would have a bigger headache. So I think safely we can say that, you know, it's probably a need that we can do. Now, I want to get back to the comments that I was going to ask before. One thing is we've been looking at different options, and you new guys are going to get to look at these options. You probably already have been, but the goal is to recycle, reuse, to do away with as much of this waste as we can, so that a minimum amount has to be thrown in the ground somewhere. Now, where that ground's going to be, you know, is another question, whether it's in our county or outside of county or, you know, however we can do it. Some of the best things that we've seen, in my opinion, are like Waste Away and like the Ecomore group. The waste that comes out of those two is basically inert. I mean, if you go up there and you look at Waste Aways, you know, you'll see a golf ball, a piece of a brick, a clump of rock or gravel. You know, that's what I'm calling inert material. That's basically what these people are leaving over that has to be landfill. It still's got to be landfill. So we got to find a place for it. And that made me go back to something I recall Mac Nolan saying probably a year and a half, 2 years ago. We have a landfill that's closed, of course, and then we also have a C&D landfill. There was, I think you mentioned at one time that we could petition the state to change that landfill where we could dump in it ourselves, our municipal solid waste, if need be. Now, I'm not advocating starting to dump municipal solid waste there, but I want to know if that is a possibility, because if we were only having inert material, you heard my definition of inert, so I don't want people calling me saying, hey, you want to dump trash here. That's not the case. The only thing that I would consider would be inert material. But is it a possibility, and either one of y'all can probably answer that we could actually use part of our land there that's currently in use for C&D, or maybe some property that's not being used there on our landfill to dump inert material?
So regardless of its status as far as its chemical action, if it's derived residentially as municipal solid waste, then it is considered municipal solid waste, so it would be a Class 1 landfill, which, because our Class 1 is closed, that would require us applying for a permit and going through the process, that permitting process with TDEC to see. That's soil suitability, that's all kinds of hoops to jump through. I think the likelihood of that happening is very close to zero, as far as, because we don't have any soil out there that would be suitable for a new landfill placement.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. That's why I was talking about inert material. But I wanted to know if that was a possibility. You haven't heard that in the past.
Yeah, it's currently on our permit, for what little airspace that we do have estimated left in there, we could accept construction and demolition debris, Class 3 only. So if it was something that had ever came out of a home as a municipal solid waste, regardless of its state, it would be classified in that. I mean, best case scenario, it would be classified as a special waste, but the Class 3 can't accept special waste either.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
can you clarify the numbers again about what the amount from the 10% would be?
Well, okay, math is not my strong suit, Joshua, but if we estimated that a transfer station that would meet our needs plus at max would be 20 million. Was I right? 10% is 2 million.
My understanding is it'll be,
So it's not
the proposed
200,000.
cost could be 20 million, so 10% would be 2 million. Before, I thought you said 200,000, so I was just clarifying.
You're telling me design,
Yeah, thank you. I had the $200,000 number in mind, excuse me.
Okay.
So you and I both made a quick
so
math error.
you're telling me if an engineer to draw up a set of plans for a transfer station is going to charge us $2 million?
200, no, I had the 200,000 number in mind. I popped off 10%. The number I had in mind was 200,000 on a $20 million job. So 1% would be a
So 1% is a suitable design fee.
suitable budget for this
Okay.
conversation. You and I both jumped to the 10, so excuse me.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, I can get confirmation from Ms. Caldwell. When I had this conversation with her, she also said it would be in the neighborhood of about 200,000.
Okay.
So, again, so we're not at
So
2
the
million,
math-
we're at 200,000.
The answer's right, but the math was fuzzy to get there. Okay, all right, okay. Yeah, thank you, Joshua. To go back to Robert's thing, and remember what the city's doing. The city is getting ready to go to city council and ask for monies to go ahead and enter into design phase with Waste Away. Okay, that's great. More power to them. Right now, all they really have as a customer are cement kilns to burn the material as an alternate to timber or coal. They can play the green card, less carbon, that's great. Rah, rah, that's great. If it ever gets bigger than that, Waste Away is trying to do the same thing that Republic did with, I forget the name, where they were trying to make jet fuel, remember? Waste Away is trying to talk with the feds about, instead of using corn for gasohol, they use these pellets to manufacture a gas that they can use in the farming and construction industry. Long way to go on that, but that's their ultimate goal. But whether we are dumping pellets or dumping trash, we still need a transfer station to dump it out on a platform, to send it, put it on a rail or put it on trucks and send it somewhere. But I've often wondered, if you were a landfill in another county, would you rather take pellets or fluff that are inert, or take smelly, stinky, rotting solid waste to put in your landfill? So if worse comes to worse and you couldn't sell enough pellets, you're producing more pellets or fluff than you could sell, you could still landfill the rest. But it's an inert material, like Robert says, and it's a slick environmental deal. Should get a gold medal for that. But
They'd want to take whatever packed the tightest.
well, pellets would pack pretty tight. Anyway,
If I may,
I get off.
if I may add, and I want to make something, and I've talked to Mayor McFarland about this, about the potential of us having a transfer station, and he liked the synergies of them proceeding forward, as Commissioner P. pointed out, with a more environmentally friendly solution, which that is our ultimate destination. Our situation as a county is entirely different than that of Murfreesboro, Smyrna, Laverne, and Eagleville. Entirely different. They have no statutory obligation, gentlemen. We do. The statutory obligation for Rutherford County is to deal with household trash and trash generated by the schools. That is our responsibility. Nobody else's. We don't get to divert that. Murfreesboro does. They get the luxury of pursuing very green solutions, and I think we should support that. I think we should try to partner that to the extent that we can, and we should. Just like I think they're excited about maybe this initiative on our part. But I'm just here to tell you, we are the one with the responsibility and the obligation, not Murfreesboro, Smyrna, Laverne, or Eagleville.
Thank you, Mayor. Mike, bring us home.
You have an environmental engineering consultant team that works for you at the landfill already. One of their customers is one of the big three. So all the questions you're asking, they can answer off the top of their head because they experienced it with the big boys.
Are you talking about Triad? Okay. Okay, all right. So I guess here's what I'm asking. in terms of speed and need and getting off dead center and moving forward. If you're not paddling, you're not stirring up the water, right? I'll let you. I think I'm looking for a motion to spend at least up to $200,000 for design fees for a transfer station. And I'll let you speak unless somebody wants to. That's what I'm looking for. Vice Chair, you have the floor. Yeah, yes.
Before the motion, and I didn't mean to interrupt Commissioner Piercy, but for some of us who've been involved in garbage for years and years and years, but are fairly new to the committee, it may be best to add in the Solid Waste Solutions Committee and their resolution to stop any outside of the region garbage coming into Rutherford County. Where does that stand, and how would that impact those 24 months that we've talked about? Are we overlooking something here, or am I reading things wrong?
Want to comment on that?
Yes, Chairman. So as far as the news of that resolution on that, it continues to stand at December 31st. I have no news from the board. We will meet next week in Cannon County to discuss things. I'm sure this will come up as an update while we're there. I've heard nothing that will say that won't take effect or change. We've heard nothing from the state. And it's been pretty silent since that resolution has been passed.
So as far as we know, that's a go. As far as we know.
As far as we know, it's a go.
And your 24 months, 2 years on the landfill filling includes just the regional garbage coming into Rutherford County. Is that correct?
No, the estimated time is based on current actions and activities that have happened up to this point.
That's anybody's and everybody's in the world.
That's correct.
But my question is, if that goes forward, how does that affect that 2 years? Are we still under the gun for 2 years? Or you just said, or what I just heard you say, is that as far as we know, that's a go. So maybe next year we'll stop receiving out of the region garbage. So is that going to expand the life of that landfill way beyond the 2 years? So
to answer your question, there's two different things that we need to address here. Currently, the model, if Middle Point landfill is not accepting, BFI Republic Services is not accepting money, is not accepting our garbage or outside garbage, that's their revenue source. That's the way they're making money. So they'll have to ask for money to be able to operate their landfill in a way that would involve us discussing that. I have heard nothing from them. I don't believe the mayor's office has, as far as them reaching out to us to discuss what that fee would look like post December 31st. And more, we're operating in unprecedented territory with the resolution as it stands. The thing that's interesting to me is I haven't heard anything back from TDEC, of which that resolution was the board, according to the board's beliefs and the attorney for the board, that believed that was conducted, in accordance with TCA 68 Part 8, 211 Part 8, but the.
Hey, Bishop, let me stop you. And let me put a halt to this discussion. With the absence of Nick here, I think we're getting off into in an area that we should not be talking about without representation, because this part of this topic that you brought up, although very good and does have consequence, these were part of the discussions back and forth between attorneys and Republic and the county and the city that has all got us to this point right now, So I would suggest we not talk about this part because we don't know whether that is a go or no-go. We just don't know. A judge may have to tell you whether that's a go or no-go. But I know this discussion has brought a lot of angst and a lot of money to attorneys' pockets who get to write big, nice papers threatening a lot of different things, which has been the case. So I think we need to dispense the discussion of this particular alternative.
I didn't mean to bring up something that was so sensitive, but the Regional Solid Waste Solutions Committee made that recommendation, and I'm not sure if it's still on or if it's still not on, and it could have a big impact on the 2 years, as an example, but it could also have an impact on Republic making a decision as to what they wanted to do with that landfill. So I guess the point is that the transfer station will be a solution no matter what happened with the regional garbage. So that's the bottom line, correct?
Yeah, that is my opinion.
Okay. And one other quick point. The commission passed a letter of understanding, a letter of intent with Pratt Industries on a recycling center. Could someone tie all this stuff together for me as it relates to a recycling center and a transfer station and how all that flow chart would seem to work 2 years from now?
Okay. Our county attorney and the attorney for Pratt are currently going back and forth on the redlined letter of intent that we sent back and have yet to reach any kind of agreement on our request and our red lines. The mayor has not received any comment back from Pratt.
That's my question is, a transfer station, a recycling center, if we went with all of those at some point in time, and 2 years from now we had transfer station or stations and a recycling center, what's the flow of garbage? What would happen to garbage?
Yeah.
I'm just trying to get 100% straight in my mind when my next door neighbor asks me, what about garbage and what's that flow? Can you explain what that flow would look like?
Frankly, it would be real similar to the flow that we have today. We would collect the material as we do at the centers. It would be separated at the center, segregated at the centers in its dual stream capacity. It will be taken to the recipients of the commodities that we separated out, much the way it is. The only difference in the equation, at least initially, is that the MSW that we collect, the bulk garbage, the garbage that goes into our large compactors that is not currently being recycled, would end up being go to the transfer station, placed in trucks and hauled off to an end-of-life area, a facility, a landfill.
Baby, feed me here, okay?
Yes.
My garbage can is picked up from my house. Where would it go?
Transfer station.
What would happen at the transfer station?
It would get thrown in with and put on the tipping floor. It would get put into a transfer truck, a haul truck, and it would be taken to its end-of-life area in the transfer station model alone.
Recycling center, where would that fit in?
Same place.
It would go from the transfer station to the recycling center?
So you're talking about having a MRF facility within the transfer station. So there are two different types of facility, which isn't outside of the possibility of construction in the future. The optimal way to grab recovered materials is to grab them at the source. So the best way to recycle, like we live in the city of Murfreesboro, we've got the 96-gallon black containers, and some of us have pay a second party to come and pick up our recycling. I separate that recycling and put it in a different container, and it gets taken off to recycle. We're dealing with county garbage in the county collection from my perspective, that's the same model that I use at my convenience centers and does not currently include curbside collection of recycling or garbage of any. The city of Murfreesboro's material that they pick up, if they pick up according to their current rule, there's nothing that goes into those black containers that gets collected. Once it hits the transfer station, it's the same as taking it up to Middle Point landfill and disposing it. If it's in the garbage truck, it goes to the garbage. Now, the future of maximizing that disposal and what we want to do with that at that transfer station and that footprint, if we want to have a materials recovery facility or we want to talk about those things to increase the ability to divert, I think those are also options that we could have in the future discussion, but they're not really in the envelope of what the transfer station and the $200,000 that's being discussed is talking about now. Was that?
Explain it to me one more time.
Okay.
Garbage from my house goes to a transfer station. And if we have a recycling center, which we've already been talking about a couple, 3 months ago, where does that fit in? Where?
The same way that it does today.
Okay.
The garbage, so let me be clear before I when your garbage gets picked up at your house, it's picked up in one black 96-gallon container. Nothing is going to change. It's going to the transfer station. It's getting thrown into a landfill. If you go to my convenience center with your recycling, or you go to Haley Road with your recycling, then you put it in there, and then it gets taken to a recycling center. Like if it were currently our cardboard and our fiber gets taken to Greif. Greif takes that material. They give us a return on that material. Our metal gets taken to Clark Metal or Express Metal or Averitt Metal. That's the model. Now, if the city, in partnership in the future decides that they want to grab and give us a recycling container, or you want to have a secondary recycling container, then those commodities, the company, and I'll name them, that operates here in Rutherford County is Recyclops. Recyclops takes that material and will take that out and puts it to market. I pay them to do that. So does that help answer that question? Okay. Yes, sir.
We need to come out of session because we're still in a suspension of the rules. So, I'm sorry. Yes, I would like to call us back in session. I hereby call us back in session. Thank you, Bishop. Thank you, Mac. Now, what are your wishes?
This makes my 9th year I've sat on this committee. This makes about 7 years we've talked about this subject of a transfer station. In the beginning, it couldn't get any grip. We've looked at everything imaginable under the sun that anybody could bring us to do with our trash, from turning it to diamonds, to fluff, to dirt, whatever. Jet fuel, electricity. Hey, they can do anything with it, but they have no use for the end product, or nobody will take what they have at the end. A transfer station would be our plan B. We have no plan B, fellas. If they call us tomorrow, if they call the mayor and say, Mayor, we've got a serious problem, we're going to be down 30 days, we're going to be down X amount of days, or if they call and tell us they're full or just going to quit, we have nowhere to take Jeff Phillips's black trash can. He'll have to keep it, regardless of what's in it, till we come up with some other solution. And it sounds like we're 2 years away if we started yesterday. This is a B plan. It's something we've got to have, or we're going to pay dearly somewhere else. I'm for a transfer station. I have been for a long time. I'd like to see one developed that we could expand into possibly a MRF, something with some sort lines so we could get some recyclables out of our trash. I sat right here about 8 or 9 months ago and heard the most intelligent comment I've heard out of any person that come and presented us with anything of what to do with our trash. I asked the gentleman, I said, if you were in our shoes, what would you do? He looked at me and he said, Commissioner, he said, the first thing I would do would be build a transfer station, consolidate your trash, and then you would know what options you had to go toward with anything else other than recycle. We don't know what we've got till we put it all in one location. It's hard to tell. And far as when the landfill's going to close, I can't tell you. Jeff can't tell you. The mayor can't. The man from Republic in the audience can't tell you, because it's flow. They can adjust the flow of trash any way they see fit. But regardless of that, we need a plan B. I'm going to make the motion that we proceed with the design money, $200,000, to design some type of a transfer station that can be expanded for further use on our property that we have at the landfill.
Second.
Commissioner Johnson.
Will you be willing to modify to say not to exceed 200,000?
Most definitely.
Second.
All right. And roll call.
Commissioner James? Yes. Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Anthony Johnson?
Aye.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Chairman Cush?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Since we didn't have any discussion on that after the motion, could we have a little now?
Sure.
I was here for 17 years on a county commission. I was gone 12 and I'm back. When I was here before, it came before us to vote on this deal with the landfill. We did that. That was back in the day. That was a while ago. We were informed by our specialists, people we paid, some we didn't, but they were knowledgeable. And at the time, it seemed like the correct thing to do, and we were told that was the correct thing to do. We didn't have big mega landfills at that time. We had a lot of mom and pop landfills. At that time, we didn't have all these counties bringing their trash in here because we had mom and pops all over the place taking care of that. They began to close. As they closed, their trash was, I won't say diverted, but that could be the word, is brought here. It created a huge problem that none of us saw. I did vote for this, so I take responsibility along with everyone else that voted for that. But we were informed it was the right thing to do. And today I'll still say it was the right thing to do. At the time, it's a different time now. We're really in a crisis. This is the first step. Transfer station is the first step we need to take, I feel, to have a solution to the problem that we have out there. BFI is not our enemy. They're definitely not. They were needed. I think they'll still be needed. I won't bash them. Have they been perfect out there? No. But no company is, and none of us are. But we do have to do something now. And I feel that this transfer station is the right thing to do. And that's one reason, that's the reason I'm on this committee. It's one reason that I came back on the county commission, asked the people to vote me back in, because I felt responsibility for what we created. Now I feel responsible to help fix the problem that we created. Thank you.
Commissioner, that's very noble. You know, to also say no one could anticipate the growth of this county. I mean, it's easy to armchair quarterback, but we all know that that commission did what they did with the information they had at the time, and that's all we can do. What I will say, this committee has learned some lessons from that time, and that's why we're taking extra caution and care to be really diligent about who we pick or whom we pick, and then make sure the contracts that we ultimately enter into are good for all parties. So we appreciate the learning experience that we've gained from those days in the past. So yes, Vice Chair.
Do we need to make any type of movement toward an RFI or an RFP to get that ball started?
Excellent question, Commissioner. I have, because Ms. Caldwell is a known quantity that has currently got a contract with Rutherford County developing an RFP for reclamation out there at the landfill. In the course of those conversations, I've asked if it would be possible for her to work into an RFP proposal with us in that regard for the scoping of an RFP for a transfer station. So she's going to get back to us on that, and then hopefully I'll have a report on that shortly. She would have been with us here tonight, but as Chairman Cush knows, she was in Chicago and couldn't be with us. But she has been for quite a while been involved in our solid waste situation, and again, she has graciously accepted the willingness to work with us on an RFP in that regard.
One other question. Do we need to make any movement toward permits? That could take a long time.
It's a great question. I think between Becky and Bishop, that needs to be on their radar. So publicly stated, yeah, that needs to happen.
And my understanding, talking with Bishop, Commissioner, the property that we're talking about locating a transfer comes under the current rules for establishing that. We will double check that, but you're correct. But we understand that the current rules that apply to the Class 3 would include the ability for us to put a transfer station on there. But we will certainly double and triple check that, because you're right.
Reason I asked, even if they're permitted, we don't have to do it. If something else comes up that we wanted to do, but it'd be a very time-saving thing to ask now.
Yeah.
You're correct.
A year from now and be put off another 18 months at the end of that. So,
well done. Anything else? Any other business? Michael, you good? Mary, you good? Good. Adjourned.